Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming down to Artscape. We are the Disability Channel in our Limited. We want to thank everybody for coming in, especially our class, our graduates. Congratulations to our team. It's been a wonderful, how many weeks now, Frank? How many months? 5?
weeks.
6 months,
Yeah,
maybe?
14 weeks, yeah.
14 weeks, so it's wonderful.
20 weeks.
20 weeks.
Yeah. 14 weeks, yeah.
What we like to think is this is a real hands-on training skills program where we hear from our graduates that when they go for interviews and they are put to the test, to let's see what you can do, the person on the other side of the table goes like this. Because actually they can edit, they can color correct, they can shoot, they can do administrative work. So we really want to thank our teachers. We want to thank Stephanie, we want to thank Allie, we want to thank James, we want to thank Lewis and Tyler, they're our production people. And actually, before we get started, looking around, Allie, Stephanie, Tyler, Lewis, these are all graduates from our programs. Lewis has been with me for 5 years. We have another gentleman, Chris, who's been with us for 6. So it's very important that we provide an opportunity, a platform for people to succeed, right? That's what we always put them in place to succeed. We want them to succeed. We want to support them. And like we said, I was telling the ladies earlier that everybody in the studio, including myself, has an illness, right? So this platform is all about kindness, support, and everybody knows that some days you're not feeling well. So the other person steps up. So we're all of us are a little bit our MacGyvers. They know how to edit, they know how to shoot, they know proper ethics, they know how to talk to people, how to communicate, how to be energized and keep the momentum going. So I really want to thank you. Back there on our wall is a little bit of our history. We've been to the Super Bowl 6 years in a row. Media accreditations on Media Row. We have front row media accreditation because, again, we're all disabled. We're very excited as now we brought in the veterans over the last, Frank, maybe 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years we brought in the veterans. And what that has done to the disability community is just rise. It's just the spotlight has just become 100% plus because veterans are a special person. They're their own, they're heroes. So they help our disability community so much now that the Disability Channel is going to be part of the production team for Invictus Games in 225 in BC. Exciting. So these are guaranteed jobs. Guaranteed jobs. So what's happening is I had a meeting with the executive, the boss from the Invictus Games out in BC. He was here in the studio. And they were so impressed with what we did back in 2017 when we were just part of the media team at the Mattamy Center. Remember, Frank?
Yeah.
He said he offered us the job. He said, Jay, do you want the production for the Invictus Games? And I said, okay, hold on. I said, we are so flattered that you would like to offer us that job. However, I think a better fit would be a major production company, an able-bodied production company where we can fit in, right? We can, you have 3 guys on a team, well, now you have 4. We can do administrative work, we can do online. Unfortunately, they have, Invictus Games are going to go for 10 days in BC, 12 venues, ongoing. There's no way my staff is capable of producing that games. However, they said, you're in because the other production companies have no link to persons with disabilities, no link to media like you do. We have also a show on Sirius XM that I go on once a week and we promote all the success stories. And we want you to interview Prince Harry J. So this is going to be great. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if we get there, the Disability Channel is going to go worldwide because not only have they contacted us, now we're going to be working with the Paralympics, the Special Olympics, and the Olympics, hopefully. So it's all because of you. It's all because of our great team. April, everybody gives 100%. So I really want to thank everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Frank because I talk a lot. So
Yeah, Frank. What can I say? Well, you know what? The enthusiasm is is so amazing, even with all our support and collaboration with the channel. And part of this, I spoke with Jay a few years ago, and we came up with this directive in terms of assisting veterans to make that transition into civilian life, and also assisting persons with disability barriers, or I call abilities, because they have abilities, to learn all sorts of areas of production and post-production and podcasting. But one of the main criteria too is accessible media. And with AODA coming on board, and even with the Invictus Games, one of the things that the production company did look at was, we need to make media more accessible, and that was one of the key factors of what we could, provide for that Invictus Games program in terms of the captioning, in terms of the documentation. That's really key. And so we're really happy that we actually input the accessible media training component into the program. It's been very good. And I think, again, the work experience in the shadowing in terms of the production, a lot of the participants were involved hands-on, as you will see. We'll get to that, Ali. We'll get to that soon. But I'd like to thank, the Ontario Government Ministry of Training and Skills Development that were a key part of this, and our partners too in terms of the community development and for recruitment and making people aware of the program that's out there. This is the first cohort. There is a second cohort coming up, and we're really excited about that. So without further ado, I'd like to thank everyone again, all our trainers, all our staff, all of the support people, all the community agencies up there that have supported us in this initiative. It's been terrific. So without further ado, what we'd like to do is actually, and also I have to mention to you, there are a lot of people joining us virtually that couldn't make it to our, celebration today. And some of our students here as well, Sarah and Jay Draper is here as well. They're online. Say hello, folks. so they're going to be presented with their certificates too afterwards. So I'd like to introduce Ali. Ali's been a key figure in terms of our training, and as Jay mentioned, Ali's been with us. She works with the channel and with our social service agency. Gosh, Ali, like 5 years.
Has to be around.
And Stephanie herself has been a key part of the training, the development, the training agendas, the scheduling. There's so many pieces that she's been in charge of, and she's been amazing. And Stephanie's been with us for, I think, 2018. She rolls her eyes. 2018. It's been that long. Yeah, that's a lot, right? And I think that's all key is the people, the team behind you that make it all happen. So, Ali, I'm going to leave it to you now to, I guess, take that introduction to. Actually, we should introduce the grads first, right? So then we can do the samples, right?
Absolutely.
So, Jay Draper, say hello, the grads.
Hey guys, we're really sorry I couldn't be there. Got COVID, unfortunately, so otherwise I would definitely be there. I miss being there with you guys in the space.
Sarah?
Oh, she's taking it.
She's had some microphone issues.
Oh, okay.
So she may be typing her.
Okay, that's all right.
But Sarah is one of our long distance students, so she's been doing a lot of this through distance education, through the Zoom. She's been joining us for our studio days virtually, and she's been doing a lot of work independently, so it's really quite impressive.
And I think is Angel on there too?
Yeah.
Okay. Angel wants to say
Yeah,
a couple words?
can't mention, forgot about Angela too. Angela's our back end sort of administrator support person for our programs, and we appreciate all the back end work that she does.
Great.
Yeah.
And then why don't we go around? So Daniel,
Daniel?
look, just say who you are and where you're coming. Your background, calling where you're coming from. How you found us?
I was looking for work for the summer, didn't find any because this type of field work is very much networking, not so much the traditional route. Here's your resume, good luck. So, I applied many places, didn't get it. Found a flyer for the Disability Channel. It said, are you interested in media studies and okay.
Great.
Something to add on my resume, so very good.
Thank you for sharing. Daniel, actually, his forte, I would say, would be in editing. He's a really master editor, so he actually jumped in right away on day 1 or 2. He jumped in right away and started doing some color correction for Lewis. So I really thank you for that. Thank you, Daniel. Kathy?
Well, I did the first hour work program in accessible media, and I was looking for work, and I saw through Stephanie, who's my mentor, that there was another ongoing accessible media program, and you also learn video editing, you know, working in a production environment. And I thought it was just for veterans, but it turned out it was for people, everyone, you know, with disabilities, and we would be interviewing veterans. And it turned out to be a really fun course, and I learned a lot, you know. I'm mostly interested in doing WordPress websites, but along the way I learned how to create videos, and I had a fantastic time interviewing Andy Barber, you know, and it was great.
Well, I have to say something about Kathy. Kathy's been amazing. She actually taught one of our staff members, Chris, the go around on the website. Like, you were amazing with the website upgrades. Like, Chris couldn't figure out some of the things, and you figured out on day one. So I really thank you for that. And yeah, regarding the interview with veteran Andy Barber, that was a wonderful day. You did a really good job interviewing, and you're very. You've added a lot to the class. You're very kind, very energetic, very friendly. So I really appreciate that.
He's very likable.
No, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you, Kathy. You're very kind. You're very kind. John?
Hey there, I'm John, and yeah, I'm Toronto local, born and raised, and my case in terms of like the way I found out about this program is fairly similar to how Kathy did. I was in the Accessible Media program last year, and then that led into the current media program that we did this year. I ended up here mostly because I was in need of a career pivot. I went through a crisis a few years ago in my life and used to work in medical care, like in healthcare. And but you know, media has been a background passion of mine for a long time, but I just didn't know how to make use of any of that. So this is, I'm hoping, my first big step into that world.
Well, I'd say John's a little bit of a MacGyver. He's very, very savvy when it comes to the YouTube, the back end. He's very good in social media. He really took to the camera, John, for our disability den. And I liked you when you interviewed Jay out on the street with the music show. So that was great. Actually, everybody's really jumped in, you know.
Yeah, I have to mention also a key person here is Jessica. And Jessica has been one of our instructors in terms of really a very good instructor in terms of the accessible media. Everything from the document creation to making social media accessible, and really glad to have her on board, and she's been excellent with the students and actually mentoring a lot with them as well, ensuring that they're able to do the captioning properly, and that's a big piece.
She's a specialist. She's a specialist.
Well, she is.
You're a specialist. Like, you come in, we call her, and we come, all right, we got specialists coming in too. So yeah, thank you, Jess. And I want to thank April too.
Yeah.
April, amazing work, keeping us all alive, our administrative work and all that, so I want to thank you very much. And April, again, it's a success story. How long have you been with us, April?
Since 2016.
There you go. Like, long time, so.
Okay, I feel lower now.
Yeah. So why don't we hand it over to Ali, and she can take it from here.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
You are ready?
Hi, guys. My name is Ali, and I'm one of the facilitators for this program. If you are following along on Zoom, I am just the disembodied voice that you are hearing right now, because even I can't be in two places at once, and I'm also providing tech support. But I'm very excited to show you guys everything that the students have accomplished. Well, not everything, but some parts of what the students have accomplished by some of the mini documentaries that they have created during their time here. And Kathy's being very modest, but she did do a full documentary, a mini documentary, and so did many of our students. And I want to say also that when we did these shoots, everybody had a topic, everybody kind of took the lead on their own project, but they were also there to help out their fellow classmates, and everybody kind of took to their roles. It was fantastic, and it was a great collaborative environment. So I'm just going to bring up some of these.
September of '79, I left to go into basic training in the regular forces. I knew I needed to make a change in my life. I was young. I was 20 at that point, and I thought the best thing at that point was to go back to something I was familiar with, which was the military, and signed up and changed my life. Being a member of LGBTQ society, or as we say now, 2S LGBTQ society, back in the 70s, you had to keep it secret. We didn't have protection under the law. You could be harassed. We had people who were harassed, who were beaten up, people with threat of loss of job. Yeah, it was something you had to do, and I hated lying. But you had to change your pronouns about if you were dating anyone. It was constantly keeping things undercover. And I knew that going into the military, that it was the same, if not stricter. And I didn't go in there to try to meet women. I went in there to get a career. And I didn't realize it was a criminal offense within the military. That's how you were treated. So when I was called into my major's office, first thing he said to me, he said, well, you have to go to the such and such barracks, you're going to be spoken to. He said, I'll tell you what it's about. He said they're investigating homosexuality on the base. And he said, just tell them you can change. He said, you're up for accelerated promotion. And he said, you've got a great career ahead of you. And as I walked over, I was thinking about everything that was going on. I'd already seen 2 of my friends going through the investigation. I saw the toll it was taking on them. And everybody was on edge on the base. When I was called in, it was a man and a woman who were there. It was a corporal and a master corporal. And very general questions at first. And then they started getting very, very personal. And very sexual-oriented questions, which I was extremely uncomfortable discussing with complete strangers. And I called the interrogation. I said, yeah, I'm not talking about this anymore. But I did ask them, are you trying to ask if I'm a lesbian? And they were quite taken aback by my frankness. And he said, well, yes. And I said, well, I am. And I said, I don't think there's a problem with that. And I said, my family knows it's a non-issue. Because their whole reasoning behind the purge, both with the civil servants and with the military, was that they were afraid that we would be blackmailed by a foreign power. And it's hard to blackmail people when their family and friends already know, and it's a non-issue. But as has been stated by many people who were involved in the purge, the ones that they should have been going after, that it could be blackmail, were a lot of the married men. Yeah. When I was called in the second time, they asked me if I knew of any other lesbians, and I said, well, of course I do. And I remember they had a yellow legal pad and a pen, and they pushed it towards me. And I said, no. I said, you got me. I'm not giving you anybody else's name. It didn't even occur to me to ever do something like that. As I said back then, it was so horrific, both in the military and on Civvy Street. And people with an ounce of integrity, you looked out for other people. You minded your own business, and you didn't out anybody else. It was nobody else's business. Once word got out about the investigation, of course, it was top secret. But everybody knew within 2 days. And I remember going in, because I was still living in the barracks at the time, and I remember going into the mess hall to have a meal. And this has never happened to me before or since, but walking in and all conversation stops. 100 people or so, at least in the mess hall, and the hum of conversation just dropped. And then you see the heads turning, and you start to hear Leslie, Dyke. The guy that we used to always sit and have our meals with, he got up and left the table when I sat down. Wow. And I started to be ignored by people. But I did have a small group of women who were my allies and, were letting me know, keeping me informed of what was being said. I remember being very angry. And my younger sister, she remembers that as well. She said, you were so angry when you came back. She said, for about a year. If it was men mentioned, I was just angry. And I think that it was the anger that fueled me. I got a job with a insurance company, and it was a new office they were opening. And the supervisor apparently took a dislike to me, as she did to the next woman that she hired, and then the third one after that. But when I got fired without any warning, without any discussion, it sent me into a spiral of major depression. And I didn't know what that was until years later. I was in physical pain. I ached. My body ached. I was sleeping 16 to 18 hours a day. Put on a ton of weight because I only got up to have something to eat. And I couldn't stay awake for more than an hour. And it hit me. It hit me months and months later. As I said, I didn't know what that was. I'd hadn't experienced it previously. And it didn't even occur to me that it had anything to do with having been purged from the military, because that had been months before. I thought, oh, I'm working past it. You know, you don't talk about it. Oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm just working past it. But 2015, I was contacted by a woman I'd served with, Diane Pitt, and asked me if I was signed up for the class action lawsuit, and I said no. I'm past that. I'm good. And she kept messaging me and said, we need your voice. So I talked it over with my partner, and I reluctantly agreed to get involved because I knew it was going to be messy, because I hadn't dealt with any of this in almost 40 years. But anyway, I got involved, and then I was contacted to get involved with the Rainbow Veterans. And I never thought of myself as a veteran because I'd been kicked out. And I didn't get to accomplish what I knew I could have done, given the opportunity. And so I agreed to be on the board. And one of the things that has also brought a lot of us together was a documentary that was done at that time called The Fruit Machine. And we've gotten together over the years for the screenings. It was started in 2016. I believe they released it in 2018. And a lot of us have gotten together in various cities across Canada for the screenings, for the Q&As, and we have formed community. We have found other purge survivors. There were some who hadn't met anybody in decades, didn't know that there was other purge survivors out there. And that's part of what the Rainbow Veterans does, is we're, for education, to let people know, to tell our story about the purge and how we have survived, and most of us have thrived.
So yeah, I would just like to take this moment to say, the assignment originally, we expected these guys to do like a 1 to 3 minute documentary. But they were so very ambitious that I had people begging me at every stage of their program, can I have a little more time? Please, can I have a little more time? So then we said, okay, 6 minutes. And yeah, some of them went as long as 8 minutes. Because as you see, these guys got some really fantastic interviews. That was Jay Draper's interview. Well done, Jay, for taking the lead on that.
It's so important that it was really hard to find anything to kind of that didn't compromise the story I thought she was trying to tell, right?
She was fantastic. Yeah, she was a fantastic interview. But you did an excellent job of succinctly, because I think originally her interview was about 40 minutes long. You did an excellent job of truncating that into it. And
well, thank you. Yeah, that was the toughest part, trying to figure out what to cut, right? Because it all just seemed so from the heart and such an important story. So it was challenging.
Definitely, but it was very rewarding because we see the results up on screen and it looks fantastic.
Well, and she was a great interviewee, so.
Yes, she certainly was. Okay, we're moving on to the next one.
Yeah, you just have to also remember that everybody else had a part of that. You mentioned with the credits, and always you do the credits, and you always forget, oh no, the credits are there, oh well, but it's all the team that actually put their work into it as well, right? So the scripting, the lighting, the
Yeah.
audio development, all those things.
These guys were honestly, they were a team almost
Yeah,
from
they are
day
an
one.
excellent team.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone's involved.
And they also created podcasts
Yeah.
from this as well. So in Jay Draper's interview, you hear more of him asking the questions, actually hosting and interviewing more verbally in the podcast.
Okay. This is our next.
Claire Dixon, the son of George Richard Dixon, who served in the No. 2 Construction Battalion.
Back in the beginning of the war, people of color were not allowed to enlist due to their race. However, the Canadian government only allowed people of color to work what was called the Construction Battalion. Now, they were refused enlistment into the army by the Canadian government, but they still needed these men to do backbreaking labor, including tree cutting, building roads, laying railway, and moving urgent supplies to the front lines.
My name is Lisa Dixon, and I am daughter to Blair.
My name is Lance Dixon.
My name is Bo Dixon. I'm the youngest son of Blair Dixon. I'm a theater practitioner, artist.
Owner and operator of a coffee house, bakery, and catering business.
I serve as racial justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion consultant for education district here.
When did you know about your father's actual role? How did you find out?
Well, I didn't really know what they were doing. Then I came into that as the years went by. Interesting that there was no real naming of it. I didn't know that it was No. 2 Construction Battalion, but I knew that he was in France.
In 1917, 600 black soldiers set sail for England and France. Unfortunately, the only records of what happened to these men was documented in Reverend White's diary, which showcases shocking stories of racism at every page.
We had less privilege in terms of option of life opportunity, and that's the way it was.
My father and our grandfather represent 130 years together of a story of our nation's modern history of racism. Our grandfather was part of the first and only black battalion that served our country. And they were an exclusive black battalion because they were discriminated against by the white military officers and the soldiers who refused to serve alongside of them. But so determined were they to serve their own communities and families with the same dignity and honor that they organized themselves for service despite all that discrimination. My father, before you, is the first black Canadian ordained in the Episcopal Anglican Church. That doesn't come without a cause, because when my father talks about opportunity, he was first denied that very opportunity to live his vocational calling from a bishop who said, there's no place I'm going to put a man of color in my diocese. So my father's journey, like his father's journey, is one of seeking opportunity. And what that afforded us as his children are the opportunities that we have all been able, privileged to live out. We had choices, real choices, because our father chose a path of accepting life as it was and not fighting against it, but seeing the opportunities within the narrow path that he was given. So we really stand here today, all three of us, as beneficiaries of our father and those also chose to, as we say, find lemonade in the lemons.
Having someone like my father, being raised by him, I mean, that's something, it's, I could write a book about that experience and how grateful, blessed I am.
We have been raised by a wonderful couple, my dad and our mom, who gave us privilege right from the get-go. The privilege to make our own decisions and our own choices.
I think the word that really encompasses or kind of embodies what Dad offered us is hope. And that's what we need, those who live on the margins of society, who experience discrimination.
my childhood was, in one respect, certainly could not be considered as a comfortable, but it was certainly has to be called rocky. Well, much more important was the smooth comfort and care. Bo wrote a song, "Love will carry on." Love, when you're down and out, love. That's what I learned. I really made an effort. I can say this. I consciously made an effort without knowing what I was doing. It was by advantage to be as loving to others as I possibly could. And so the bottom line is, I was attached to the church, and to this day, I thank God for God's church that I have membership and I have opportunity to live out God's love.
Justin Trudeau issued an official apology to the members of Black Battalion. What are your thoughts on the apology?
I accept it as a personal apology, and I say apology accepted. And so it's my hope that it moves on from there, and the apology has action.
You could have let your tough childhood get the best of you, but instead you retire with honor. And I appreciate everything you and the whole Dixon family have shared with me. The TDC Disability Channel, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
As Lisa said, we thank you, Daniel.
I just want to make a note here that Daniel did a lot of this.
Yeah.
Read that little
That's
room.
Right? So, yeah, a lot of that was done in there. So, congrats,
Yeah.
Daniel. That's excellent.
Daniel had very ambitious plans for this particular documentary, and so we knew that he would have to do these interviews long distance. So we made a bit of a plan for that. But how many times did I tell you, no, Daniel, you can't blow something up in your documentary?
Not so much documentary, but other assignments for sure.
Yeah.
I want to blow stuff up,
Yeah, so Daniel had to learn
Action
a little bit about meeting goals under constraints and limitations, let's say. But we got there, and this was the result, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it was good family.
Yeah, he ended up getting to interview the whole family, which we didn't expect at the time.
Yeah, it was, I was kind of worried because on the 9th, it was gonna be him, and I guess,
Recording
Lisa,
stopped.
which was with him
Recording in
tonight.
progress.
But then it was a miscommunication that we couldn't make it. It's uh-oh. And then, back and forth emailing, I was able to do the 16th, and then on that same email, oh yeah, I can come too. Okay. More the merrier.
Yeah, it ended up being wonderful, and they actually were, I think, and you touch on it a little bit here, but they said that they were really grateful because they very rarely get to see all of each other.
Yeah, they did a piece, City W5, I think, pretty sure everyone knows W5. W5 did a piece, but they told me, because it's city, they don't really get the whole story, because it's, mainstream. So, they were really happy that, and really proud that they could share kind of the off-the-record version of that interview. Yeah, so they were good family.
Okay, so this is our next one.
Allie, are we just playing a portion of it? Because I remember it's 40 some odd minutes long.
Is that the original? Is that the original one? I thought you sent me the one that you cut.
If you have the one that I sent you, it's probably going to be the full length.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, we'll probably only have to show
You can show a portion of it.
We'll move on to the next one for now, and then I'll show a portion of it once it starts.
If you have the podcast I did, that would be the length.
Okay.
turn, and this is Danny Barber. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, thank you very much, Danny, and it's an honor.
This first question, the obvious one. What made you join the Navy?
Well, I've been asked this question quite often. You go to speak with children in schools. I got one of the best jobs. I eventually got one of the best jobs any 17-year-old could ever have in the Canadian National Railways as what is known as a car apprentice. That's a fellow that would repair cars, freight cars, and passenger cars, and so on and so forth. So I was there for the better part of like about a year or so, and one day I was standing in the tail lineup, and of course in those days you got your paycheck in a little brown envelope, and inside the envelope there was a little breakdown of what your pay was. And I'm looking at that thing, and I'm annoyed by this, that everything I've been doing, they're taking income tax off. So I happen to say out loud, Dan, they're taking that income tax off again today. And my brother-in-law's brother, who was a couple ahead of me in the lineup, he said to me, he said, well, if you don't want to pay income tax, why don't you join the armed forces? He says, why don't you, he says, join the Navy like I did. He said, who knows? He said, you could wind up maybe one of the new carriers that the Navy has, or heck, you know, even wind up over in Korea. I said, they don't take tax off? No, he said, the armed forces, they don't take tax off your paycheck. Well, I thought about it, and when I turned 18 at the crack at midnight, the next day I got the HFCS down in Kona, in Montreal, and I got my application, and I filled it all out, brought it home, and my mother and father would sign, which they wouldn't, because they were, of course, we'd just gone through World War II, and we lost, some of our family members, and they were not amused, not happy with me wanting to join, so they refused to sign. But they eventually did. And so, sure enough, there I was in the Navy, HFCS down in Kona, and the first paycheck I got, believe it or not, was income tax. Now I could have got my brother-in-law's brother. I think I would have strangled right there on the spot. But the point was, that started a 5-year adventure. And that 5-year adventure was the best 5 years of my life.
Okay. Can you tell us about the training you underwent? You learned some really valuable stuff there.
Right. You see, back in the 50s, things were a lot different than they are today in the armed forces. Back in the 50s, you got roughly about 7 or 8 weeks of basic training. And what they did, of course, is they had to convert you from civilian to a Canadian Forces member, in my case, a sailor, in a matter of time. So you didn't have your mommy to make your bed or the meals or anything else. And you were being told what to do, when to do it, and how fast you could do it, and so on and so forth. So it took about 7 to 8 weeks. I think it was about 8 weeks. And then you became, shall we say, graduated from what we call basic training. And from basic training, then, of course, in those days, they were looking for certain trade groups. In my case, they were looking for communicators, and visual communicators in particular. And so they chose me to become a visual communicator along with a bunch of other fellows. Now, that was a bit of a strenuous course. It lasted roughly about 8 months. And you had to learn the Morse code, you had to learn anything to do with visual communication. It's called silent communication in the war zone. And included in that, of course, is knowing all the different flags, whether it be for signals at sea, and so on and so forth. And also,
what about, the Morse code? Isn't the Morse code difficult? If I hear ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, it just goes right through me,
Well, Morse code, basically, when you're learning, it's like learning a second language. And
you already know French?
I do, but I'm not fluently more in it, but I do know it. But when it comes to Morse code, even today, I go aboard ship in the Highland, which is, by the way, down there at Pier 9. Don't say them. I say, what's your name? Then young Philip may say, well, my name is Ryan. So I'll just go on Morse code key and I'll go, did-da-did, R, da-di-da-da, Y, did-da, A, da-did, N. I said, there's Ryan, there's your name. Now you said you do it. And I have a big board like that. And the little guy sits there and he goes and he does it. And the parents are thrilled. But for me, that was a living. That's what I did for a living. But I did not do that in the radio. I did that up on the bridge. Up on the bridge and in the flight deck, we have 10-inch signal projectors. And for those today, the 10-inch signal projector was my internet. That's how I communicated with all the ships. Because when you're in a war zone, you've got to maintain radio silence. If you don't maintain radio silence, the bad guys can hear you. And they can cause you some real serious damage, even, disaster. And so that's what I do. I like the energy signal projector to speak to all the different ships in the squadron.
What was the purpose of the hideout going to South Korea?
Right, we're going to the Korean. And the hideout actually is Canada's most famous warship. As is described by many people, fighting a ship during World War II. She had this very distinguished record of 1,400 service vessels, 14 service vessels that she sunk, together with the submarine. So when we were over there, our job during that time, when we got over there just after the armistice was signed in February '54, our job was to go from island to island to island in the peninsula of Korea to make sure there was no buildup of troops and no buildup of the arms, etc.
Yeah, well, thank you very, very much for your service. I mean, we need more people like you in this world.
Geez.
Definitely.
Well, there's some people that might disagree with me.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Kathy, as you saw, is being very modest and saying, oh, no, it's all Andy, it's because Andy's so great. I would like to point out that, firstly, Kathy had to deal with all of the complications that come with a location shoot. So as you saw, we may have struggled a little bit. We were in a space that we were not used to, and Kathy handled that like a champ. She also did the most editing, because I think your interview ended up being about an hour and 20 minutes long,
No,
wasn't it?
not quite that. From an hour to 5 minutes, an hour.
Yeah, it was somewhere like between an hour and 5 and an hour and 20 minutes long that she had to cut out and cut around. And also, Kathy had very particular ideas about what she wanted, which is very admirable, because there were times when I would say, are you sure you don't want to cut around? And she'd go, no, I like it this way. This is what I want. So as much as she says that this is not really her bag, she's done fantastically well in this program, and you all saw the result. John, you said that you sent me your podcast, but I did not see.
So I think what we want to do now, if I'm right, is hand out the certificates. Before I do that, I just want to mention
Well,
a couple
I
words.
think there's one more.
Oh, is there one more video? Oh, I'm
There
sorry.
is one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
There is
And
one
we're
more.
just going to play a portion of that now.
Okay.
But I'm not
Well, the
seeing it.
podcast is short. We can play the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about the purge, similar to.
Okay.
Yeah, so John had a lot of, you had a bit of a challenge because you had to interview subjects that kept dropping out.
Yeah, I never did get to interview a veteran.
And so we got a little creative,
So I made a podcast.
and
Oh,
John,
you do have it. Okay.
I do have it, it's just not coming up for some reason.
It's actually stream. It's audio only, so we won't be today.
It should be fine, but it's not.
There it is.
There we go. So we're gonna listen to the podcast that John created from scratch.
You're listening to a TDC podcast showcasing abilities. My name is John. I'm a multimedia student here with the Disability Channel. When I was growing up in Toronto in the early 2000s, I learned about Canada's proud history of recognizing gay rights. purge was a 40-year-long effort by the Department of National Defense and the RCMP to find and remove homosexual soldiers from the Canadian Armed Forces. It began in the 1950s in response to Cold War paranoia about Soviet spies. The cultural norm in the mid-20th century was that being straight was the only valid, natural way to be. Anyone who fell in love with or had sex with a person of the same gender was considered an unhealthy, perverted individual. The general public feared gay people and often associated them with the seedy underbelly of society. In 1950s Canada, even the mere discussion of homosexuality was seen as a major taboo. There have always been queer people serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. For much of Canada's early history, there were never any screening methods, tests, or policies designed to weed out anyone based on their sexual orientation. Even though homophobia in Canada is not new, the idea that the sexual orientation of public and military employees being a potential problem was new. The military and RCMP believed that gay soldiers had something shameful to hide, making them likely targets for blackmail by Soviet spies. Documentation from the Canadian military in the 1950s reveals a shocking level of disdain for gay soldiers. The terms pervert, mental illness, and character weakness were used in their reports. Most victims of the purge were only 18 to 20 years old when they were targeted for scrutiny. They were taken to small, windowless rooms by officers of the Special Investigations Unit of the RCMP and interrogated for hours. Some were held in custody for days. The idea was to get gay and lesbian soldiers to admit their status and then provide information that could be used to track down other potential undesirables. Investigators treated these young recruits as though they were criminal suspects, asking them inappropriate and degrading personal questions about their bodies and sexuality. The RCMP also demanded to know the names of other service members who were likely to be gay. Victims of these interrogations have described the experience as terrifying and humiliating. Those who refused to cooperate were often forced into admitting their homosexual status because the investigators would threaten to target their families. By the 1960s, the RCMP had developed a pseudoscientific technique for identifying homosexuals that involved hooking up a suspected gay soldier to a machine similar to a lie detector test. Subjects were again subjected to repeated, humiliating questions and even shown pornographic photos of members of the same sex on a projector while investigators monitored their response. They believed that if the pupils of a person's eyes dilated upon viewing suggestive homosexual imagery, then this indicated the presence of same-sex desires within the subject. If you weren't already aware, lie detector tests are not a scientifically proven technique for extracting reliable information from anyone. Police in Canada are still allowed to use lie detectors as a scare tactic to pressure criminal suspects during an investigation, but the results aren't admissible in court. Using these tests, even in legitimate criminal investigations, is considered highly controversial now. But in 1960s Canada, the lie detector was standard operating procedure for police investigations. It didn't take long for the RCMP to repurpose the test into a homosexuality detector. The test was nicknamed the Fruit Machine, and as you've probably guessed, it did not work. By 1969, the Parliament of Canada under Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau passed Bill C-150, legalizing same-sex intercourse. The picture I've always had in my mind about this time of history is that Canada developed its iconic socially liberal character around the 1960s. It certainly looked that way on paper, but the legalization of homosexuality didn't result in an end to the purge, nor any inquiry to hold the RCMP accountable for what they were doing. Instead, the purge simply accelerated. It wasn't until 1990 that a lesbian former soldier and purge victim named Michelle Douglas finally took the Department of National Defense to court over her wrongful discharge. The case was settled out of court for $100,000 and resulted in the purge being quietly ended. Even though being gay in Canada was slowly becoming more accepted in the 1990s, no further progress was made on the issue of the purge for the next 25 years. Think about that for a minute. In the 2000s, same-sex marriage had been legalized across Canada, and there were gay pride parades happening every year in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver. And yet, the gay veterans same mistreatment. It provides an important record of what happened, who it happened to, and the institutions involved. It also serves as a legal resource to help purge victims and their families. Later in 2016, hundreds of purged military veterans banded together and filed a class action lawsuit against the federal government. Former service members Martine Roy, Todd Ross, and Alida Satalik led the charge. The government settled the case for $145 million, with $110 million set aside as payment for damages to the purge victims. The settlement also allocated $15 to $25 million for the purposes of truth and reconciliation, as well as to memorialize those who had passed away during the intervening years without recognition for their service. In 2017, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau issued a public apology for the events of the purge. 3 years later, the National Capital Commission announced plans to construct a monument to the purge in Ottawa, as well as an exhibition at the Canadian Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. Hopefully, these efforts will help bring this shameful chapter of Canadian history to light and give us a clearer understanding of our own legacy. Canadians cannot afford to let the progress of today blind us to the injustices of the recent past, especially since so many of the people affected are still with us. Making Canada a safe and inclusive society for queer people goes well beyond throwing some parades. The LGBT Purge Fund continues operating to this day, making the events of the purge more well known to the general public. If you or someone you know served in the Canadian military and had your career cut short due to your sexual orientation, please visit www.lgbtpurge.com for more information. Thanks for listening.
I want to reiterate that in most cases, these guys went out and they sourced interviews and they had a lot of fun. John wrote and researched that entirely by himself, as well as doing a lot of the audio work for some of these mini documentaries that you saw today, and helping out on location sets. So he did a fantastic job, and I'm really proud of the work that I just heard. Thank you.
I love your voice. That's really fluid
I
and
was told I
like
showed
a
my
rock.
family.
Wow.
It's a
what
podcaster
nice
voice.
Yeah, I did.
Very nice.
Pretty good voice.
It came through nicely.
Yeah,
I think that was
very,
great,
very
everybody.
nicely. I also want to mention too that VPI we really appreciate your connection with our community and our programs and Career Foundation. Really appreciate that. And Lopi down there, hi Lopi, their production. They've been very supportive of our programs and services, and we appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, before we handle the street, I just wanted to mention this program, what it has meant to the veteran organizations that we have connected with. First of all, they're absolutely shocked that somebody's actually reaching out to help them, right? They're absolutely shocked because most people, I think everybody does not understand that you sign up to fight for your country, voluntary, and when you serve and they deem you're broken, they put you to the side. They put you to the side. This is what I hear from the veterans. So they want you to serve, and then they deem that you're broken, so you get put to the side, and then you have to fight to prove to get service, to get help. So they tell you that you're broken, so you go to get help, and they don't believe you. You're the ones that told us we're broken. So what I'm saying is by creating these programs for the veterans, it's changing their lives. They told me, they said, Jay, you're changing our lives. We need more help. They said, there's not just veterans in Ontario. There's veterans across Canada. And this is what we're trying to do now with the Ontario government, try to get the connections to every province, every premier, and then showcase all the positivity, results, and success stories at the Invictus Games, right? And now we've just brought on a non-for-profit Veteran House platform now, so they're also non-for-profit, so it's great. Like, everybody's working together, so I can't thank the Ontario government enough. I can't thank our associates at Career, VPI, Loopy, thank you so much. We're just growing. Our second cohort is going to be starting, and we're going to go across Canada. And I have people. I have a Pentagon interview on Sirius XM with a member from the Pentagon in the USA. That now the USA is coming to us. So on my Sirius XM show on Thursday next week, I'm going to be interviewing a member. He's a former captain and now he's an undersecretary for the Pentagon. They love our programs. We need this.
Yeah.
They said, Jay, you have, what, 1 million veterans in Canada, basically?
Yeah.
We have 22 million
Yeah.
that need help.
And I think it's really important to know too, with this whole program, you're producing videos and podcasts for veterans who are not only trying to do that transition to civilian life and all the challenges, as you could see through the videos and podcasts that they encountered. It's really best practices in learning lessons and providing resources for other veterans so that they can learn too. And not only veterans, but for us as well. These stories that you guys uncovered are really interesting.
Well, that's what they said, right? The veterans told
Yeah.
me, Jay, if we can help your community, because we might have a little bit of a bigger spotlight, because, we're, military, and, so if we can help your community, we'll do that, and they are. Once we brought on the veterans, it has shone the spotlight on our community.
Yeah, and
right?
there's so much more work to be done too.
Yeah.
And I think with the next cohort is going to be amazing as well. It's going to be more productions. We've learned a lot, and we have more veterans involved, as you were saying,
Yeah.
Jay. So we're looking forward to it.
So why don't we start the process?
Yeah. So without further ado, so I'm going to get you to handle.
Al, you do, or you want me
You're
to
going to do.
Oh,
sure.
I'll do. Okay. So congratulations, Daniel Wadman. Here's your certificate, Daniel. Thank you, sir. Maybe take a couple pictures. Maybe get a guy with a camera, or I don't know. Maybe Tyler can do it with the camera. Get my camera here. Where's my phone? Here. And let's get Daniel a picture of all the graduates. I like the graduates.
Where's your phone?
I got it. Oh. And then we'll have some lunch. Okay. So, I don't know if you want Ali, you get in there. Actually, no, maybe
Yeah,
you
do a little line.
It's not your teacher. It's your teacher. Don't get me out of the camera here.
And you too.
No, not me. No, I'm on camera too much. Get somebody else on camera. Wonderful. Okay. Next one would be John. Okay, John Philip Young, please come on up, John. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Excellent. Thank you. Kathy?
Captain.
Yep, Kathy Bell. Congratulations, Kathy. Val, your teacher? Okay. And
Virtually.
virtually it would be Jay Draper. Okay, Jay, you said Al, give us hi, Jay. You hold it for Jay.
I'm holding it up for Jay. He just wants to
Okay, why don't you hold up right next to him?
Yeah, do it next to him.
Would that work?
How do I get in there?
Give her, stand right there. Stand right next to him. Stand right here.
Like so.
Yeah, stand right here and then turn around. There you go.
And then put a certificate
Put
right
it
under his face.
on Sarah's face, and then we'll do Sarah later.
All right.
Sarah's next.
Yeah, Sarah's next.
All right.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. Okay.
Congratulations, Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Thank you.
JD, we always get that mixed up because we say, hey, Jay, and then Jay,
And
Jay's
Sarah?
both Jay's.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Here's Ali. You get hold up Sarah's.
I gotta hold up Sarah's.
Here, I'll take this one.
Higher.
I'll take this.
Thank you. Higher. Like so.
There you go. Perfect.
We're good.
Yeah, Simon was an
Oh, sorry. Okay. So that's it for our celebration. There's graduates. Congratulate everybody. And I think we're just gonna have a little bit of bite to eat.
A little bit. There's lots to eat.
Lots.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, lots of food and then Q&A. If anybody has any questions or
Yeah,
anybody wants to
well,
ask
maybe
any
do that,
questions,
or,
maybe the
and
guys
while
can
we
get
bring
the food.
everything in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can answer any questions anybody might have.
But I mean, if these videos you post on YouTube at all?
Oh yeah, that's where we're showcasing this, right? So we actually went live on Facebook too. So we're gonna showcase all these videos. Well, probably, they're all edited, right? Right, Al?
We're gonna post them, and in fact, because we also taught them some accessible media, everybody's work has transcripts, so that they will be captioned. They can be captioned really quickly, easily. We're gonna just put them on the YouTube. I'm not sure what the posting schedule is for that, but they are planning. They are part of our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and then we're starting our next program. So in October, we already have some real special things. But like I said, with the Invictus Games coming, not till 225, but they're already started. We just finished the ones in Dusseldorf in Germany. So we've already been in touch with all the team, and so they're saying, yeah, like start getting your team together, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great for Canada, and this will hopefully bring our programs right across Canada because the exposure we're going to get through the Invictus Games.
This will also be posted on the TDC website.
Yep.
website.
And we can send you guys links. If you guys, anybody wants a link, we can share links with you too. If you want to show people at your, at your company and all that sort of thing, we can do that. So, yeah. So this is talk among yourselves for a little bit. We're going to eat, and I'm going to go help Frank and